Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a sledgehammer to one of the most deeply ingrained psychological illusions in the entire modern working world. We're kicking off day one of the Unshakeable You series, and we're calling it the title illusion. Let's just cut right to the chase here. You are not your corporate rank. Your actual raw human value, it has absolutely nothing to do with a little email signature or some random box on an organizational chart.
So, I want you to look right at me and ask yourself a serious question. Who are you without a title? Look, right at this very second, there are literally thousands of people sitting in dark rooms just staring blankly at glowing computer screens. They're feeling this overwhelming, crushing sense of emptiness. And why? Simply because a company decided to hit delete on their profile in some HR database. They look in the mirror and legitimately do not know who was looking back at them anymore. And it's because they made the mistake of letting a faceless external entity write their internal identity. They're confronting the absolute void of losing a corporate identity that honestly was never really theirs to begin with.
Now listen to me. It is completely natural to feel unmoored right now. But we have got to stop mourning a piece of plastic. The loss of a corporate badge or getting locked out of a company email server, that is not the loss of your humanity. You haven't been hollowed out just because a piece of corporate code and a bi-weekly direct deposit were disconnected from your name. You didn't lose your soul. You didn't lose your intellect or your capability. You lost a digital sign-off. Seriously, that is it.
Okay, let's dive into this and look at the actual mechanics of what's happening here. The corporate structure desperately wants you to believe that your title is literally your DNA. Actually, fun fact for you, corporate job titles became super popular decades ago, mainly as a cheap way to stroke employee egos instead of, actually paying them higher wages. The big corporate lie is that being a director, a manager, or a VP defines your worth as a human being on this earth. But the raw truth? A title is nothing more than a temporary rental agreement for your time. When you think about it, it's an absolute absurdity to allow an external corporate entity to dictate your internal identity.
Let's define exactly what a job actually is, clearly and firmly. A job is a temporary rental agreement for your time, your energy, and your focus. It is not, and I repeat, it never has been a transfer of your soul. When you sign that employment contract, you didn't sign away your essence, right? You merely lease them your intellectual focus, your problem-solving skills, and your awake hours for a set period of time. Basically, they paid a fee to rent your mind. And sure, that rental agreement can end, but the mind, the actual asset itself, that remains entirely yours.
Now, you might be wondering, why is this illusion pushed so hard? Well, it's a control mechanism. Why do they want you to derive your entire self-worth from an assigned title? Because a worker who attaches their human value to a corporate rank is predictable, they're anxious, and most importantly, they are incredibly easy to control. If you actually believe that they give you your identity, you're going to sacrifice your mental peace, and you'll tolerate endless, grueling hours just to keep them from taking it away. All for the glory of a $5 Employee of the Month mug. You end up completely reliant on their validation, constantly seeking permission just to feel proud of yourself. But the reality is actually incredibly simple, and this brilliantly illustrates it. You brought the talent. They just rented it. A job title holds absolutely zero authority over your raw capability. It doesn't dictate your intellect, it doesn't cap your resilience, and it certainly doesn't define your capacity to conquer complex problems. Think about it. When you were hired, the company didn't magically create your talent out of thin air. No way. You brought decades of lived experience, late nights, and strategic brilliance right to their doorstep. They were simply renting access to your genius. I want you to think really deeply about this master craftsman metaphor. The workshop is gone, but the craftsman remains. Imagine a master builder who has this incredible workshop, and one night, tragically, that workshop burns straight to the ground. Does that builder suddenly lose all of his skills? Does he just magically forget how to measure, how to cut, or how to build? Of course not. The workshop was just the building. The skill itself is permanently embedded in the craftsman's hands. The vision is permanently locked inside the craftsman's mind. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it physically separates the two concepts. Notice the complete separation here. The workshop represents the company, their capital, their corporate structure, and ultimately their limitations. On the flip side, the craftsman represents you, your skill, your vision, and your raw intellect. When you lose a job, you are merely stepping out of their workshop. You did not lose a single ounce of your value. You simply stopped lending your sovereign human genius to a structure that is no longer housing it. We have got to reframe this immediately. A layoff, a firing, a contract ending. Listen, this is not a reflection of your lack of value. The separation is their limitation, not your deficit. You just stopped lending your genius to a company that, frankly, no longer had the capacity, the vision, the budget, or the operational intelligence to actually leverage it. It means their infrastructure couldn't afford or sustain where you are going. It is a reflection of their boundaries. It is never a reflection of your potential. So we are shifting the paradigm entirely right now. You are what we call a sovereign asset. What does that mean? It's an individual whose value, intellect, and capacity to execute are completely self-contained. That is you. You are the prize here. You are the high-value engine. You are the architect of your own unshakable reality. You literally do not require a corporate stamp of approval to be valuable. Your capability travels with you wherever you go, completely independent of whatever corporate logo happens to be slapped on your coffee mug. So how do we actually measure our worth if we aren't relying on that broken corporate ladder? Well, we build an internal ledger. I want you to think about these undeniable historical wins. Number one, think about the massive crises you personally averted when everything was absolutely collapsing around you. Number two, the complex systems you optimized out of pure chaos. And number three, the revenue you protected or even generated. You engineered those results through your own blood, sweat, and discipline. That history belongs to you alone, and no HR department on earth can ever liquidate it. So, the crucial point is this. The corporate badge might be gone, your digital access might be totally revoked, but the architect who built all those incredible results, they are still sitting right there in your chair. The fire that generated all that immense value for them is still burning right in your chest. You are a walking, breathing archive of resilience, and that internal power is totally untouched by any external circumstances. Now take a breath, straighten your posture, and just recognize what you actually bring to the table. You are the asset. When you step into any room, any virtual meeting, or any interview from now on, I want you to remember exactly who you are. You are not there to beg for a salary. You are there to conduct an audit to see if they are worthy of your focus. You are a self-contained unit of absolute capability. It is time to let go of the need for their permission and start projecting the quiet command of someone who knows their undeniable worth. The rental agreement is over. And you know what? That is a fact to be celebrated, not feared. They did not break you because external systems cannot touch your core. A company downsizing, some automated algorithm rejecting an application, an HR manager sending a generic copy-paste email, none of that has the power to dent your spirit unless you literally hand them the weapon. They cannot touch your intellect. They cannot touch your discipline. The lease has simply expired. That's all. Your independence has begun. Say it, believe it, and cement this new unshakable mindset right now. You are reclaiming your power from a system that was specifically designed to keep you anxious and predictable. Let the market rage outside. It doesn't matter, because inside your mind, you are completely sovereign. You are an unstoppable force, an individual who refuses to quit, walking right out of the illusion and stepping firmly into absolute self-belief. That old corporate ladder, it was just temporary scaffolding you were standing next to. And now, the scaffolding is gone. But you are the master craftsman. So the only question left to answer is, what will you build next? You are completely free to walk your own path and execute on your independence. The training phase is complete. Now go conquer your next chapter. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you next time.